Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the D-Tub Show. We're going to run the four-corner offense, as you can clearly see, with Pat, Allen, and Brian. We're going to unpack a few things tonight, most notably these CFP results and sort of how that played out and whatnot. But before we do that, we drink on this show because that's what we do. So tonight for me, I've got a one bottle I got to get rid of, another one I really like. So the bottle I'm going to get rid of tonight, this is Four Roses Bourbon. Comes highly recommended. And as you can tell, I put a dent in the bottle. So with that, Alan, how are you this evening and what are you drinking?
I'm doing well. Actually, the same as episode 1. I'm finishing off the Lagavulin 16-year this evening. I try not to drink that one too casually, save it for special occasions like this.
No, absolutely. And you know what? And I feel honored and grateful that you would save it for a special occasion such as this, as if we don't get together from time to time. But it's always special when we do. So salute to you. Pat, what are we sipping on this evening?
Leftover Thanksgiving beer from people that were in my house for 9 days. It felt like 9 days. No, it's this. I think this is Modelo I'm starting off with. I had a house full of people for quite a few days.
And they left you, and they left leaving for you.
So after this, it'll probably be a Christmas ale of some sort. And then, I think there's one other beer in there. I'm not sure what it is.
I think I need
something hazy.
I think I need to do an episode just on Christmas ales because I saw Great Lakes is out and Great Lakes is good, but other people have that.
That's what it is.
I'm not a big beer guy anymore, but I could be swayed for a Christmas ale every now and then. And lastly, Brian, what are you sipping on this evening?
No spirits, but I am doing Topo Chicos, so I have a variety here.
No, absolutely.
I'll be dying on here.
You are the seltzer king, so
I do enjoy a good seltzer. I've given up beer, so seltzers are now my beer.
That's why your figure is good. My figure is round. Yours is nice.
You got to remember, round is the shape. So you're always in shape.
God damn it, that's me.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, I guess Pat, I'll start with you. Sort of initial reaction to the teams that were picked. Did you feel like the committee got it right? Is there anything that you would have wanted to see that they didn't provide? Let me say that as a fan and as a viewer.
I thought Miami probably deserved to be in there. Otherwise, I'm looking at it over here on the viewers. I have another monitor right here. It looks fine. I don't know. I guess SMU. You don't know much about them. I didn't watch them much this year. I didn't bet on them much, if at all. I don't think I did. So I don't know a whole lot about them. And I just thought I watched Miami several times, and they came through for me on quite a few bets this season. I'd have preferred to see them personally.
You're loyal to who pays. There's no shame in that.
For nostalgic reasons, I think I like the U. So no surprises. I mean, I think people are going to take umbrage with Ohio State being 8, but it is what it is.
Fair enough.
They lost a bad one there at the end. We'll get into that later, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll get that. Well, we got that coming. How about you? Initial thoughts on it?
I think they got the who right. I mean, I'm not crazy about the timing of some of the stuff. I don't know how you don't give Penn State a whiteout night game, but I'm kind of with Patrick. I mean, I did a perusal of some schedules and nothing scientific, so I could have missed something. But it looked to me like a bunch of middling Big Ten teams played a bunch of middling ACC teams, and the ACC won 4 and lost 2. Mm-hmm. So I think really the only change I would consider making would maybe be like swapping out in Indiana for Miami, but at the same time, Indiana didn't lose very many games, so I think I'm okay with it.
And I think 11-1 is easier to swallow than 10-2, even though I tend to lean towards you that if Miami and Indiana played, I feel like Miami is a 3.5-point favorite on a neutral field, and it's a kind of a back and forth game. But because they have a special player at quarterback, specifically a Heisman finalist, they kind of get the nod. So I'm with you on that. Tubbs, your sort of initial thoughts, reaction to the rankings, the final, the bracket, all of it.
I think that I would agree with Alan that I think that who was right. I think they got the teams right. I think for me, this has been beat to death. I just don't feel like you could keep SMU out based on them losing. I mean, certainly amongst the 4 of us, we were talking during the SMU game. Was like, I don't know.
To watch them out.
But they came back. They had a good showing. So I'm fine with them being in. The Alabama argument, yes, certainly I get it, but quit playing Mercer in the middle of your season in November.
Troy.
Quit playing the Citadel or Troy. Like, knock that off. But I thought that maybe they would give Clemson a home game just because they are the ACC champ. So I thought that maybe they might have moved them up in a space where they could do it. But I also think if you're looking at the season from a cumulative perspective, they weren't better than Notre Dame. They weren't better than Ohio State. They weren't better than Penn State, and they weren't better than Texas. So, I mean, there's not really an argument for them
Clemson
to
had
have
3
a home
losses
game.
too. It's hard to give them a home game with 3 losses.
Yeah.
That-
So
Two
yeah,
of them were darn good losses, but 3 nonetheless.
But of
Yeah,
those
so,
3, 2 of them were SEC teams, and it's like,
but I guess here's my contention though. Clemson was the 12 seed,
Mhm.
and they won.
Yeah.
But SMU was the 11 seed. So I feel like on some level, and they
Well,
played
you-
head to head.
you
So
led
at a
me-
minimum, they probably should have been switched.
Thank you for that, because you led me right to where I wanted to go.
That's what I
feel
do.
like, based on the rules of how the tournament works, I think they got the right 12 teams, but how they bracket the teams is nothing short of academic bullshit. Like, it made sense in theory on a chalkboard, but then when we actually played this out, they're like, they should have treated it just like the basketball tournament. The committee's job should be 2 things. You should pick the best at-large teams, and you should seed them appropriately, and that's it. Because the way this is set up, the idea that Boise State or Arizona State gets a bye, even though they're ranked 9, 12, whatever, but Texas only loses 2 games to Georgia, and they're a 5, and they don't get a bye. Like this, I think they'll correct all of that. So I'm with you guys. I think it's right. I think SMU's second half in the title game against Clemson is what sealed it for them. I'm sorry, I cannot shed a tear for Alabama for 2 reasons. One, you lost to Vanderbilt and an under 500 Oklahoma team. So there's no shame in losing to Tennessee, but you lost to Vanderbilt.
Those are 2 bad losses.
Even if you lost
Really
to
bad
Oklahoma,
losses.
but hold on, but even if you lost to Oklahoma, you'd be 10-2, and you'd effectively be Ohio State at that point. But Vanderbilt's unforgivable. Like, it's just totally unforgivable.
Even on the road,
That's what I'm saying. They were the number
Yeah.
1 team. They had just beat Georgia. Now, hold on. To be clear, the Vanderbilt kids are on scholarship. They got NIL money. They're going to play hard. I'm not taking anything
True,
away.
and it could be a classic letdown game too. Like they spent everything for
Trap game, whatever you want to call it.
all
Other
of it,
thing
so.
too is you can't suggest to me and pound on the table and say that the SEC is the best conference in America and this, and this, and then go schedule Mercer like what you just said, Tubbs, or lose to Vanderbilt. Which one? If your league is that tough, hey, just win your games and you're in. I kind of adopt Oregon's coach's philosophy. You can eliminate all the risks by just winning the football game. But you put
that's true.
Well, that's where I said, amongst our chat, is that I think one of the best ways to resolve this is that every conference plays 9 games, and one of your non-conference has to be against a Power 4, because now we're going to get into common opponents, and so that's going to, I think, would help in terms of some of these tiebreakers a little bit. Like, well, you both played North Carolina. One of you lost, the other one won, right? So I think that would be something that would be able to help some of this along.
college
I want to
football
ask.
commissioner.
I was going to say. I want to ask Alan. Do you think we're going to 16 like within the next 2 years? Dog.
What
16
was that again?
total.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
I was saying, do you think we're going to 16 total teams at some point?
Hang on. I need to pause. My dehumidifier came on, so I can't hear us.
That's okay.
There we go.
Can you guys hear me, or is it?
Yeah,
it
no,
sound-
I
yeah.
can hear you.
Yeah.
No,
So,
I
hold on.
tell you what.
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I guess I'll throw it out to everybody. Do you think we're going to 16 just because
I think
Alabama got left out?
I think eventually they will, because it's just cleaner.
Yeah.
And then at that point, when you get to 16, you can then rate them literally 1 through 16, and then just go
Right.
through and do it.
It's just cleaner. I think
That's what I think. Yeah.
I think 2 things are in play that push it to 16. 2 things. Number one, we still have yet to see what an actual playoff game looks like.
We don't know. We don't know.
And the committee missed a massive opportunity because Penn State should have been Friday night, and that should have been a whiteout. Whiteout playoff game would have been must-see TV. But because ESPN's involved, this is the first Notre Dame home game since like 1990 that's not being broadcast by NBC. So if I'm ESPN from a ratings perspective, I need Notre Dame to go first on a Friday night, and I need Ohio State on a Saturday night. I get the most people coast to coast with that combination, but we missed a beautiful opportunity to put Penn State as a whiteout, as a home playoff
Yeah.
game.
So now they're doing their whiteout, but they're doing it at noon.
Yeah, but
Which,
it will
Again, it's not the same.
Not the same.
not the same. I think it's that, and then I think you've got to get rid of these like buys. I think it's an automatic qualifier, win your conference and you're in. And to me, the cleanest way to do it is to do the 6 conference champions, the highest ranked 6 ranked conference champions, and 10 at-larges. You automatically get in, like this year. Boise gets in, and Boise's ranked 9th. You're the 9th seed, and you got to go on the road. So you get a chance. This is your chance. But that's it. Because Arizona State and Boise should not have gotten a bye in this. They are not one of the 4 best teams in this tournament. Let me say it that way.
Yes, I think we can all agree that they're not. But based on the bylaws and all that type of stuff, I think their hand was forced. But to your point, I think going forward, this is probably something. This is a 1 year.
And the last thing I'll mention, and then Al, I'll give it to you. We haven't seen the playoff games yet, but these things are going to be massive revenue generators, especially especially for the 4 teams that get the host. If you go to 16, that's 8 teams that get to host. And once people see it, it's kind of like you didn't know you wanted an iPad until you saw it. And then once you saw it, it was like, I have to have that now. A touch screen computer with no keyboard, I have to have it. I think that's going to be the natural sort of thing. So this format of 12 teams is this year and next year, and then they got to figure out a format going forward. I'm with you, Pat. It's 16 teams, feed them 1 through 16, and go, and be done.
That was the question to Al. I don't know if your audio is good now, but I was just asking you your thoughts. Do you think we're going to 16 eventually?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are. In some ways, it's a shame because I kind of like it when the apple cart gets upset and things don't go exactly according to plan, and you end up getting a Boise with a bye and maybe some bigger dogs because. I don't know. I guess for me, this is the NCAA tournament fan in me. Whereas, and this is a nuanced thing, but like, to me, I would rather be 100% sure that the best team is standing at the end of the tournament than be 100% sure that we got the best 12 teams in. And what I mean by that is like, if you finished 4th in your conference and you have 3 losses, you're not even the best team in your conference. So I don't need to have you in a playoff to prove or disprove anything. Yeah. What I need to have prove
takes care of Alabama.
Things to weed out these 1 and 2 loss teams.
Yeah.
I need some stuff to help me understand them better. And so I don't necessarily need the more teams because I don't think we're ever going to have, once you get past 12, you're going to be letting 3 loss teams in. And I don't necessarily need that, but it's where we're going to go.
Well, I'm glad you said that because the win-loss thing from a public perspective is really easy to understand. But to your point, and I think if you go to 16, you're going to run into a situation where you have a 10 and like let's play this out 2026. Boise goes 11-1 and they win the Pac-12 because they're going to the Pac-12, and UNLV goes 12-0 and wins the Mountain West, right? And let's say they are the 2, what would be considered group of 5 or group of 6 or whatever, the 2 highest rated ones. So give me your Power 4 and those 2, and then 10 at-larges, right? But is a 12-0 UNLV team really better than a 9-3 Ole Miss?
And well, and that's what I mean. They probably aren't.
Right.
But since we have a limited amount of games to work with here, I know the 3-loss Ole Miss team is not better than the 1-loss SEC team. So I
Yeah.
can just eliminate the 3-loss team. They already spent the regular season showing me that they weren't the best team in the country. But UNLV might be. I don't think they are, but they might in your scenario. Because
you remove the Cinderella aspect if you exclude them. And I think part of us are here for the Cinderella aspect. So using Boise as the example, when they upset Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, and I want to say they came back a year or two later, flew cross country to opener against Virginia Tech in D.C. at FedEx Field and beat them. All of a sudden, it was like Boise might be a real team. Like,
not to mention the fact, like I think a year prior, I think they started the season at Georgia, right?
Yeah.
So they had the mentality of we'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime.
Right.
So
they
to
won.
your
They won in
UNLV
Autzen 1 year to start the season.
Yeah,
And they won in
honestly,
Oregon 1 year.
Oregon this year only barely beat them, and Oregon needed, I think, 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns to beat them.
Yeah, because I remember I was complaining about him that night because I had money on Oregon, and they were like, crap.
Right. But I just think that you sort of eliminate the Cinderella aspect of it if we start letting in a bunch of 3-loss teams. So I'm kind of with you, Alan, where we'll have to find, I'm saying like we have any control over this, but there's got to be some sort of sweet spot that says, I want the 10 best at-large teams, and I want this seeded appropriately, but I just get tired of this narrative. Like the Big Ten made it really easy. The 4 teams that got in had no more than 2 losses, and all of them were ranked inside the top 10 most of the year, with the exception of Indiana, who sort of came on late because their record demanded that they get pushed up. But if you're going to give me it clean that way, that's fine. But you have all these SEC teams that kind of cannibalized each other. I don't know that we need those teams in. And I just think, like, for instance, if we'd have went to 16 teams this year, and let's say you have 6 automatic conference qualifiers, Army's going to get in. I think that's a cool story. And I think also that's in the best interest of the sport at large. If teams from those conferences know they have the opportunity, and that's all we're talking about, is a seat at the table and a chance at the dance. That's all we're saying. And I think in the best interest of the sport, if we did 16 this year, Miami, Alabama, probably Ole Miss, and Army are the 4 teams that go in. I think that's pretty compelling if Army's in there, given Army's history and tradition. Now, no one expects Army to win a playoff game, and they're probably seeded 16, which is fine. They have to go to Oregon. But still, that's in the best interest of the sport, not a 4-loss SEC team who is living off the reputation of a conference, when really we should be looking at these teams individually for what they did this year, not the history of Alabama or the history of Michigan and Ohio State. What did you do today? What did you do over the course of a season, and not rely on that? And I say that as, we live in Big Ten country. I would say that if Ohio State had 3 losses, no, you don't belong in there. If Michigan's got 5 losses, hell no, they don't belong in there. And you just devalue the tournament as a whole. But the biggest issue is they have to reseed this bracket. They're not going to, but Oregon now, and that's the one thing I'm going to ask you guys, so what do you think has the toughest path to the title? Because I believe now it's Oregon. They're only undefeated school in the country, and now they get the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee, when really they should probably get Arizona State.
Arizona State.
You see what
they
I'm
really
saying?
Should. No, I do. Yeah, it doesn't look right. I mean,
and so let me ask you guys this. So, Pat, I'll start with you. Who do you think has the easiest path to the title, and who do you think has the worst path to the title? Because I think we kind of all agree Oregon has the toughest road.
Georgia has the easiest to me. I mean, they can beat Notre Dame, they can beat Indiana, and I think they can beat any of those 3 teams on the lower end, Boise,
I would have
SMU,
agreed
or
with
Penn
that.
State.
I would have agreed with that before the quarterback got hurt.
Georgia's really good.
They are playing. It's an elbow injury, and it is undisclosed how long he's going to be out. So they're going to hold it close to the vest.
I
don't
just mean
pull
on
up the
paper.
bracket now.
I know about the quarterback. I just mean on paper. I think that's the easiest to
You
me.
think that's
It might
easy,
be-
Georgia? How about you, Al?
Of the seeded teams, of the teams
Yeah.
that got to buy.
Who's
Yeah,
got the
I think
easiest
they have
path, Al?
Of the teams that got a bye, I agree it's Georgia. Overall, I think it's Texas. And I don't think there's
going through Clemson. And,
yeah, I don't think there's any way Texas is losing at home to
they're
Clemson.
not.
I can't
they'll
see
beat
them
Arizona
losing to
State.
Arizona State, so that puts
Me
them in the
neither.
semi against Oregon or Tennessee or Ohio State. I like Texas's chances against those three teams. Tubbs, what about you? You think it's Texas that's the easiest path, or is it a different squad?
I was just pulling it up right here. I think you said the toughest.
No, the easiest.
Yeah.
I think we all agree
Easiest
Oregon
path.
has the toughest. Who do you think is?
Oregon is the toughest. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's probably Georgia because I really like. I think Penn State because I think they beat SMU.
They're
and
the
then I
dark
think they
horse.
probably beat Boise.
They're the dark horse.
I think
in
they're
this
the
tournament.
dark horse. I think they're the easiest. And then certainly, if you catch Georgia on a day where they're not playing their best,
Well, I
you know,
agree.
Drew Aller can do just enough.
Penn State
When I
showed
say
us
just
something
enough,
This
I
week.
literally mean just enough to get there.
Not to change the
Yeah.
subject, but did Drew Aller's performance against Oregon, did it remind you a little bit of C.J. Stroud's performance against Georgia? Or it's a big game and all of a sudden he's running around making plays that he hadn't made all year and this game's close and it's a shootout and we're going back and forth. It's like, hey, wait a minute. Is this guy really better than what we thought? And they just didn't let loose until end of the year
he
when
played-
all the chips were on the table? Like it kind
If
of
he played that well against Ohio State, they'd had a third one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I didn't feel that way about Aller specific. I mean, it's the best I've ever seen him play. But I felt that way about Penn State as a whole. Like I had no expectation of that running game performing that way.
Me neither. Zero.
And Aller performing that way either. But at least with Aller, it's like you have seen some flashes here and there. But like, I mean, this is a Penn State team. I mean, it took a lot of luck for them to beat USC.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
it did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it
it's just like I was not expecting that to be a game.
No, but it was a good game. It was entertaining, and it was nice because first half of that Clemson SMU game, it was like Clemson or SMU might not be ready for the bright lights the way they came
They
out.
settled down.
But no, to their credit, you're right. They settled down, and then before you know it, it was a game. But thank God the Oregon Penn State game was interesting, so you had something to watch. Because otherwise, who wants to watch it? Because those are only two games on. So thank God for that. So sort of switching gears here because now that we have the playoff, and I think 12 is still better than 4. I'm just not happy with the seeding principles. And for those that don't know how the seeding principle works, if you are a conference champ, you're one of the highest. If you're one of the 4 highest rated conference champions, you automatically get a bye. Is how it works. But the way it worked this year, the teams, 2 of the teams that got a bye probably don't deserve it. But that's neither here nor there. Brian, you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say before we switch gears, I think it would be interesting if we were still in the 4-team format, who the 4 are, right? Because Boise you could maybe Boise gets in, maybe ASU gets in. You know that Oregon and Georgia are getting in, but
I think
who the other 2 are.
Texas. Texas would have been, for me, Texas would have been one of those other 2 teams.
But
You are
we
right,
could spend
though.
another 20
Ohio
minutes
State
on that,
probably
but-
would have knocked themselves out of a 4-team.
Ohio State
did.
would even been in.
Yeah.
They would not have been in.
They wouldn't have made
discussion.
it. They would have had to win
at
this.
least. They could have lost to Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, but they would have had to have got to the Big Ten championship game. They didn't. So
There we
They
go.
did.
They
Just like
had
that.
to run the Texas path, which is you're 11-1, get to the title game, and you lose the title game to the team that beat you. I think the big question,
Yeah.
if you go back to when we had BCS and computer rankings, and you could only do 2 teams, who are the 2? And I think it's clear. It's Oregon and
it'd be
Georgia.
Oregon and Georgia.
Oregon
Yeah.
and Georgia. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it.
But I'm sorry, I didn't have to derail it. You were
No,
going to move on.
No, you're
to
fine. I'm
transition
glad
to
you brought it
something
up. So now that we know what it is, let's kind of focus on Ohio State for a second. So Ohio State's going to host the game Saturday, December 21st at 8 o'clock at the night game. And they're going to host Tennessee. And this is what the tournament was designed for, is to force these teams from the South to come north. I would argue it's not that big of an advantage because Tennessee is not that far south. It gets cold in Tennessee it snows in Tennessee. This is not the home field advantage that I think people think it's going to be, because they're not playing an LSU or an A&M or a Mississippi or an Ole Miss. They're playing a team that is somewhat familiar with the cold, and our 26 degrees is going to feel way different versus if they had to go to Wisconsin or Minnesota and play outside in December. That's a different kind of cold when you get further north. So even Michigan, for that matter.
We're balmy. We're balmy, but it's not cold.
That's what I'm saying. Like 26, like it might be 26 degrees that night. Okay. And I think Tennessee will be okay. But
Some of the wind's not blowing, they'll be all right.
Right. As long as it's not super windy or anything. So I guess early impressions of, Brian, I'll start with you. Early impressions of the game, your impression of Tennessee, sort of, what are your just initial thoughts about hosting Tennessee in December?
I think on its face, it sounds good to get a SEC team in Columbus in mid to late December. I will tell you that certainly this can go a lot of ways, but if the team we saw last time plays,
Right.
i.e. the team that played Michigan, then this is Rocky Top all night. But if they learn from its mistakes, and then potentially, they could potentially, make some noise. I think the other matchups, the other quarterfinals, I think there's probably a clear or a slight lean. Like this might be the only one where it's an actual toss-up, because I think you can make an argument for either side winning. A 10-2 Tennessee team with Nico as a quarterback, I don't follow them a whole lot, so I can't necessarily give a scouting report. But I would imagine for them to go 10-2 in the SEC, I know this is a little bit of reputation. I think they played Georgia tough through the third quarter. They beat Alabama. They beat Vandy. So sorry, Alabama. So you know what I mean. So
they're in-state rival game.
Yeah, and it's an in-state rival, right? So I'll say this: I saw, and you guys follow betting more than I do, because I don't understand it. But my understanding is Ohio State is a 3.5-point favorite.
Oh, that number's a drop. So the number yesterday was 7.5. So the public money has come in on Tennessee.
Yeah.
Okay. Public money has come in on Tennessee to move the number 4 points. They had to drop the number.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but But if you're asking me, Ohio State by a field goal, I guess that sounds reasonable. But postseason, anything can happen, and certainly this is uncharted territory. So, side note, I heard a rumor that Ohio State is maybe going all red for the game. They're contemplating either all red or all black.
That's going to be a problem.
Go black to play. Listen, if I'm Ryan Day, we're going to get into this in a minute, but if I'm Ryan Day and my goddamn job's on the line, we're blacking the fuck out. If I'm going out,
I got to go
every bullet in the clip.
Do a blackout. Why not?
Black it out. Black it out.
But it's a night game. That's another color in the scheme.
Tennessee and their all whites. We'll go all black and let's go. So, Pat, what about early impressions of this game?
Well, I was sitting here thinking about it. I was like, when's the last time we played Tennessee? And I think it was in the 90s under Cooper. I think Eddie George was the running back.
It was, I think, after they lost the Michigan game to Bianca Batuka is the time.
That was it, wasn't it?
Interesting.
I saw the Manning cast where he was interviewing Brave this year, and they showed a clip of Brave sacking Peyton Manning in the Citrus Bowl.
Okay,
so
I
believe
Citrus
that's
Bowl.
like 95, 96.
I was in Florida on vacation, like winter break vacation with my family. We watched that bowl game, and my Uncle John was like beside himself. Why can't Eddie George run the football? Because we don't beat SEC teams. That's my biggest problem is we don't really historically have a great record against the SEC.
No, we don't.
So, this thing can go either way. If the Ohio State that damn near beat Oregon on the road shows up, Tennessee's in trouble. But they've also had a lot of injuries, specifically the offensive line, and they lost that Michigan game in the trenches and because of some really questionable play call. Obviously. But I don't know. I'd probably take in Tennessee getting 3.5 just to be safe.
It is still at 7.5. I just
is it? It didn't move that far.
Okay.
I was like 3.5.
So I missed.
I'll still probably take them getting.
No, that's okay. But here's the thing, Brian. We got like 2 weeks before we get to the game. That line might drop to 3.5.
It might. I'm probably going to bet it right after this is done, I'm going to put 7.5 down on
Get the
Tennessee
point.
just for
Fair
fun.
enough.
Just for fun. Not that I
Yeah.
want Ohio State to lose. Don't get
Right.
me wrong. Don't want that. Like,
Yeah. Al, how about you? And early impressions of the game?
So both offensive lines are banged up.
Good.
From what I know, Tennessee's losses were to Georgia and at Arkansas by 5. Tennessee's defense is, I want to say like I think their overall defense is something like 9th in the country.
They have very good run defense.
Running against the pass. I wonder about the similar thing that guys have already mentioned, but I'm going to turn it on its ear a little bit because you guys know that with all of my experience, I try, no matter what I think I'm seeing, to try to understand the coach's point of view at all times. Because at the end of the day, they are with that team a whole lot more than we see on TV.
Especially at this level, because coaches are so powerful and control so much. I agree.
Yeah. And so, but I'm not wondering if Ryan Day and Chip Kelly learned from their mistakes. I'm wondering if whatever made them lose faith in Will Howard is correctable by the 21st or not.
yeah, that's valid.
Because that was,
that's
as
fair.
I was looking back
That's
and I
fair.
kept reading over and over, why didn't we throw? Why didn't we throw? Why didn't we throw? Well, because when you did throw, he damn near threw a pick 6 inside the 20.
He didn't see the field.
That's why
He just I think the pressure got to him and he didn't see the field because those 2 interceptions that he threw, specifically the first one is unforgivable to be backed up in your end zone and to turn the ball over that way. That is a freshman
Throw it
mistake.
away.
That,
Throw
like,
it away. Get rid of it.
the second one is simple miscommunication, but that one hurts because they were in the red zone and that was a promising drive. And I felt like if they would have gotten points on that drive, they were probably going to win the game. And to me, that
was a
kind of
backbreaker. That was a backbreaker.
that was a
100%.
backbreaker. But the first one's unforgivable. And it seemed, and Alan, we talked about this, it seemed like once they realized that he couldn't see the field and he got banged up because he had to come out for a play. I think the combination of all of it, they looked at it and said, there's no way Michigan can score on us if we control field position. And they tried to win the game using Tressel ball. So for those of you that don't know or the uninitiated, Tressel was the coach prior to Urban Meyer. Tressel would win every game 10-6 if he could because he thought the punt was the most important play in football. But you couldn't out-Tressel Tressel, just like the Steelers Tomlin their way to a win all the time.
Great
They can't do
comparison.
that if-
That's literally a great comparison.
But they can't do that if they've never done it before. And to do it in the Michigan game of all days.
In that game, no, that's not the game to do
Tressel's
that.
teams were like hardened and preconditioned to do that. And then it backfired when they played in a BCS game or a playoff game because they were so tight that they just couldn't let loose and play. But you can't do that there. But at the same time, I feel as if I don't know what more you want a Day to do if his quarterback can't see the field and he can't go to Devin Brown. Like it's just no, you just can't go to him. So I'm with you.
But
Al.
I think
I think if they learn from that, and really at the end of the day, this is a line of scrimmage game. At the end of the day,
It's always a line of
if they
scrimmage
can
game.
figure out a way to create a few holes to run the ball and set up some play action, I have to believe that those receivers can get open at home, at night, that atmosphere with enough chill in the air to make Tennessee uncomfortable. Not that it's going to make a huge difference, but if you can make it uncomfortable, then like for instance, SMU having to go to Penn State to play a noon game December, it's still cold at 11:30, 12 noon in Pennsylvania, late December. Dallas is far enough south where it's like, okay, that might have an impact. Tennessee,
Brian Tubbs, just Brian Tubbs, let's have him run quick slants. I mean, we have receivers. Go ahead, go ahead, Alan. Sorry.
Well, the other thing is, too, the way Ohio State is built is the problem. Are they as ill-fitted for a cold weather game as any Southern team might be?
Yeah, they are.
Early returns
No,
on
that's
Will
fair.
Howard playing in the cold aren't great.
It was chilly
And
that day.
the state, so it's not as if he doesn't know cold weather. It gets cold in Kansas, right?
And he's from Pennsylvania, yes.
Yeah,
Even worse.
he's been in the
You're
cold.
from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
You played your college ball at Kansas State. Like, come on, man. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. So that being said, Brian, everybody here was on fire a week ago about fired Ryan Day and, I woke up and he's still the coach and I don't understand why and all of this. I know personally for me, I felt like it was a massive overreaction because these things are cyclical. Growing up in Columbus, there were lean years where we never beat them. And then there were years where we beat them every year. To me, these things go in cycles. You said something right after the game or the next day, I can't remember, that kind of crystallized it for me, that his buyout is $38 million. So that tells me that man's not going anywhere, because while Ohio State has a ton of money and can print money, they don't have Texas oil money. They don't have
No, they do not.
$1 booster like an Elon Musk or somebody. Yeah, Wexner's probably a booster of some sort, but he's not selling money out on college football. He never has. So, at least to my knowledge. So, I guess for you, Brian, now that all the dust is settled, does they have to win this game to keep his job? Because that's what the streets are saying. The streets are saying he's got to win this game and beat Oregon and win the semi and get to the title game for him to be safe. I don't buy that. I think that is massive overreaction. But I give the floor to you. Do you think he has to win to keep his job?
I think he has to win at least one game. I think he has to beat Tennessee. Right? Because otherwise, all of this is for naught. They got into the playoff.
$20 million.
It's a $20 million roster. And you...
$20 million plus.
So,
$20 million
plus.
plus.
Yeah, $20 million plus. And you got the home playoff game. You didn't get the bye. You didn't win the Big Ten, but you got the home playoff game. You have to beat Tennessee. Now, because here's the thing. If you beat Tennessee and you lose to Oregon, then you already lost to them before, and they're potentially, at this point, I think probably, a lot of people say to win the national championship. So I don't know if there's any shame in losing to Oregon, but there'd be a lot of shame if you lost to Tennessee. And that's not any shade to Tennessee. That's just the nature of what this particular job is. But again, the buyout's $38 million. It's not Texas oil money, although, small world, the AD of Ohio State is the former AD of Texas A&M who bought out Jimbo Fisher to the tune of $70 million.
Yeah.
That is something.
Again,
so that man, he is probably not afraid to pull the trigger. However, he also knows this is not Texas A&M. And I think as upset as people are here in terms of Day not winning it, what you're really saying is if you got rid of Day, you're going to pay this man $38 million to walk away, despite the fact he wins 10 games a year. And Ohio State is always in the mix for the playoff 4-team, now 12-team. So they're pretty much going to be, if they just go 10-2 in perpetuity, they're going to get in. They're pretty much just going to get in, right? So what I think the bigger question is, and Dennis, you and I have talked about this before, is that any team could fire their coach at any given time, right? That's a given. But the question I would pose to you is, if you're going to fire him, who are you going to get that's better?
I'm going to tell you who I don't want. I'm going to tell you who I don't want.
So who are you going to get that's going to win you at least 10 games a year and continuously put you in position to win the Big Ten and be competing for a national championship? Those type of coaches are not out there. They're not growing on trees, because usually if somebody has one, they're holding on to them.
If
right?
they fire Day, the name they cannot bring in here is Brian Kelly. You better not bring
You mean him?
Right. Like that's full stop. No. Now, if you got
I don't think they would do that.
If you got Marcus Freeman, if you got Vrabel, if you could convince Vrabel, hell, I would take Urban Meyer back. But under no
So he doesn't want the job.
That's what he
no,
said.
I do think Urban in an NIL era, I think that's Urban Unleashed at a whole nother level that we have not gotten to yet. I think he would be perfect for this era.
I think it hurts him. I think it hurts him not being one of the two schools that spend 40% more than everybody else. I think NIL hurts a guy like Urban. I think that's why Saban walked away as he did.
That's why Saban walked away, right? He didn't want to deal with the
My
bullshit.
impression of Saban said to himself, the idea that an 18-year-old kid can come to my office and demand money and he hasn't done a damn thing and he's allowed to do that, is the writing on the wall that I needed to go. I
That's
imagine Urban.
Urban's not playing that shit either.
I imagine Urban, although Channing Crowder had said something really good the other day, but I imagine Urban, like imagine that '08 team with NIL money, like that '08 Florida team with NIL money. Channing Crowder said something really interesting because he was on those teams in Florida. And he was the freshman defensive player of the year when Chris Leak was like the offensive freshman of the year, right? Well, Leak was the one that really won that title in '06. It wasn't Tebow. Tebow was a gadget player. But all the players that they won with in '08 were Ron Zook's recruits. They weren't Urban recruits. And it reminds me of Tressel won that title in '02 with John Cooper's players. Those weren't his players. He had just gotten there the year before.
Well, he got Claret. Claret was key to that team.
That's fine. That's one player. And I agree. He's a catalyst. I agree with that, Pat. But that
But I would also,
was a large
but I would
John
also,
Cooper's guys.
no, I agree.
It
But
was.
I would
Sure.
also argue that while you can come in and take over that too, at some point you got to have your own people in there, and you got to be able to at least at a minimum maintain it. So once Tressel started getting his people in, they were still winning Big Ten championships. They were still going to BCS or not BCS. Well, they went to a couple BCS championship games.
Yeah, that was right. That's right.
They were going to the New Year's Day bowls, like in terms of like the BCS bowls and things like
Ohio
that.
State's the only school to play in a New Year's Six game. Once they went to BCS, they're the only school to play in a BCS game every year. To me, that's what Ohio State is. They are now at a place, they're like the Steelers or the Ravens. They legitimately have a chance to win every year. Now, whether they do or not is predicated on the context and the circumstances of any given year. But as you sit here today, that Tomlin's going to win 9 games and they're probably going to make the playoffs. You can write that in perpetuity at this point. That's who they are.
Oh, just real quick,
And
I
to
just thought of
me,
this.
if your school is a top 5 school with a chance to win the title, you're in the mix every year. I don't know what more you want than that. Because not everybody's Alabama. Quite frankly, Alabama ain't Alabama because Saban's gone.
Yeah, not anymore.
The thing I just thought about real quick. So it seems like you're getting a little bit of a trade-off, right, for those who want to get rid of Day. So you had Urban, who would consistently beat Michigan, never lost, but he was always prone to lose a game he had no business losing. Purdue, Iowa, whatever, right? So do you want somebody who's going to beat Michigan every year, but then he loses the game he's not supposed to, or do you want Ryan Day who wins all the games he's supposed to? He just loses that one game at the end of the year.
Depends on who you're asking.
I think it depends on
honestly,
who you're asking.
There are people that don't give a shit that he beats all these other teams. They just want to win the Michigan game.
Before anybody answers that question, I would need to know, are you a fan or are you a fanatic? Because that tells
right.
I think it's fair.
That's the difference.
Right?
Yeah.
So, Al, what about you? Like, Ryan Day, does he have to win? Does he have to win the title? Does he have to beat Tennessee to keep his job? Like, what do you think?
I'm with you. Like I said, I'll backtrack real quick. Like, I do think that, the guys like Meyer, I think the sport might be more unattractive to return to because the days of you stockpiling NFL players 3 deep at every position are over.
Gone.
And that's why Urban Meyer won most of his games because he got the next man up is a real easy phrase to toss around when your backup quarterback is also going to get drafted. But that said, back to Day. I actually think with 38 million is a big number. I think it's actually, Bruce Feldman, I think, talked about it on TV a couple of times. I think it's more likely that Day gets tired of the shit and the pressure on his family.
So too.
I mean, we've seen him and his daughters up at Polaris Mall multiple times since we've the girls have been old enough to want to shop at places like that. And, the guy's just, it humanizes a person. He's just trying to be a dad, right? He's carrying fucking from Aerie and Sephora just like I am, And
right. Yeah.
what I hear, the stuff that his kids have to hear and go through, I think it's more likely that one of these days he just comes to the AD and it's like, look, let's figure something out. I want to go be a freaking offensive coordinator in the NFL, making $5 million a year. I banked a ton of money. And,
I don't need the headache.
You don't my buyout, let's just work some. I think it's more likely that it ends that way over the next few years.
That's why I was saying that if I was North Carolina, I would reach out to Day because if he goes 8-4, 9-3 at North Carolina, it's a basketball school. Nobody cares. and people will just leave him alone. So he's always going to be second fiddle. And I'm not advocating that he should leave because I do think Ryan Day is good. So
I think he's a very good football coach. I think he's a very good football coach.
But I think that's how I think it ends, is that somebody kind of taps him on the same way that I don't want to say this is probably a bad one, but Pat, this is for you. If you look at Tubby Smith at Kentucky, right?
I love
What was
Tubby.
his next job after Kentucky? It was Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah, the Golden Gophers. All right,
You know what I mean?
right.
So,
Yep.
and Kentucky is not Minnesota in basketball. It's just
No.
not.
No, but they were grateful to have him. They
But they were great. But that's what I'm saying. That's what North Carolina
Clem
would be.
Haskins
They would
was
be
their coach, wasn't
They
it?
would be grateful to have him.
I got a
Yeah.
letter from Clem Haskins in Minnesota. First letter I ever got in high school was from,
They had Bobby Jackson and a couple other people.
and I
that were
remember I
solid.
got it and I told my high school coach and he didn't believe me. And I was like, "Ain't this some shit? Why would I lie about that?" But that's
Right.
right.
That's another story. Clearly, he didn't believe in me, so that's another story for another day. But yeah, I think Ryan Day is a really good football coach. Like I really do believe that. I don't want him fired in large part because it's going to set the program back, especially from a recruiting perspective. And I think that him and Chip Kelly need more time together. Because one of the things that's going on in college, and Alan, you kind of alluded to it, is this idea that, you know what, as a head coach, I don't want to deal with this. So like Boston College's coach quit and became the defensive coordinator for the Packers. I just saw the other day that UCF, Central Florida, is hiring Scott Frost back. And I was like, well, what happened to the coach? The coach resigned. Gus Malzahn resigned as head coach of U to go be the offensive coordinator at Florida State. He's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Mhm.
I do.
It's a lot of bullshit. It's a
That's-
lot of bullshit.
And I think it's because Chip Kelly left UCLA. I just want to coach football. I'm not interested in all this other stuff. I think that division of responsibility works well between the two of them, where Chip can focus on some things and Ryan can do all the other stuff. I think there's a division of labor there that works for them. I just think they need more time together. I just think that what hurts is people will not be able to get over the Michigan loss because this is the weakest Michigan has been in a long time. That's a wounded animal that you let here and beat you with 6-5. But I would also argue they lose that game in large part because, and I'll die on this hill, Ohio State fans have been spoiled in terms of the talented quarterback going all the way back to Terrell Pryor. It goes from Pryor to Braxton Miller to J.T. Barrett to Cardell Jones, back to J.T. Barrett to Dwayne Haskins to Justin Fields to C.J. Stroud. And who came after Stroud? Now it's
McCord.
McCord and Howard. They've been spoiled because Ohio State never produced first-round NFL quarterbacks. That's just not what they did. And all of a sudden, you had a run of either hyper-athletic or legitimate first-round quarterbacks. And now you had to live life on the other side of the street, like almost every other D1 program, where, like, Dylan Gabriel is an awesome college quarterback, but you can't convince me that guy. Like, Stetson Bennett won 2 titles with Georgia. That guy's trash. College player, he's great, and he's going to go in the Hall of Fame, and I take nothing away from him as a college player. But that guy, he's effectively college football's version of Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, he's all-world talent in an all-world scheme, and all of a sudden, he looks like a $50 million quarterback. I'm digressing for a second, but that guy's not worth $50 million. That guy's worth Mayfield money. He's worth like $30 million, right?
Well, I'm glad you brought up McCord because let's talk about that for a minute. You didn't give me my moment. I'm going to tell you what I think about Day. And just for your listeners out here, I'm coining this now.
I was telling to you. I've not forgotten.
I know you were, but just I've decided to start calling him Ryan Cooper. I know I told you guys this in text, and here's why. You know, when I married my wife, I'm father-in-law. They're diehard Ohio State fans, right? He used to tell me he had this theory. Cooper was great, but he just had this tightness about him. He didn't quite understand the rivalry, and his players were tight in that game. And then when we got Tressel, and then we had Luke Fickell for a minute, and then we got Urban. Urban understood it. Like, these guys understood it. I think Day has that problem. I don't think. I'm looking back to that moment at the end of the game when all the shit went down with the fighting and the spearing, and then we don't have to talk about that. But he's sitting there looking like, what just happened? What just happened in this game because I should have won this game. And I told you guys in a text today, they're a paper team this year. On paper, they should beat everybody. But injuries happen. They lose confidence in Will Howard in the game. We've all clearly saw that. Like, I was at my parents' house this evening, and my dad's like, what happened in that game? I was like, I'm pretty sure Will Howard they didn't want to throw the ball anymore.
They knew
then he goes,
defensively
well,
they could beat them. They just got a
My
little
dad's
off.
going, well, Joel Klatt's telling him to throw the ball. And I'm like, well, Joel Klatt's right. But he's not, as Alan said earlier, he's not with these guys all the time. You know, we're just watching it as in real time as they are. I know. I think everyone's made very good points. I think if Day wins one game, I think he's cool.
Mhm.
I think if he loses to Tennessee at home, I think it's going to get real hot. And I think Alan's point is very valid. Does he really want to deal with this shit? And then that might make it easier for Ohio State to go out and see if they can talk to Vrabel or whoever else. No, I think somebody said it.
And honestly, if he does leave, they'll have no shortage of suitors, right? They'll just have
Certainly
to pick
not.
which one.
Shit, they might just hire Chip Kelly. Why not?
No,
I don't know that people. I don't think that people would be okay with that.
listen,
I
as
think
long
he's
as
so
it's not
good.
Brian Kelly, that's all I care about. It's not that fucking guy. Not that.
We'd rather have Chip over Brian Kelly. Is that what we're saying?
And I do have to say one other thing, and I mean, I'm a transparent guy. I'm obviously not the biggest Urban Meyer fan. I was when he was at BG, at Utah, but like the elephant in the room that nobody wants to mention during the Urban Meyer worship sessions in Columbus is that he was beating Rich fucking Rodriguez and Brady fucking Hope. I mean, I'm pretty sure Ryan Day would beat those two guys.
Hold
with
on.
Devin
To be fair,
Funchess
he beat
being
Harbaugh.
Michigan's best offensive player. I mean, come on.
To be
Yeah,
fair,
that's true.
he was beating Harbaugh too, but the difference is when Harbaugh finally got it together, because they didn't play the COVID year, and they for sure would have got baptized the COVID year. But after the COVID year, that's 21, 22, 23, I'm not, and let me say this. If Michigan cheated, they cheated. I don't know that it really matters one way or the other. The last year, you knew they didn't cheat and they still got beat. To me, that's the one that's legitimate, but that's neither here nor there. He was beating Harbaugh, but then Harbaugh changed it. I understand what you're saying, though, Al, that it wasn't Michigan you beat. It
Right.
might have been a Michigan helmet you beat, but it wasn't Michigan that you beat, because what Harbaugh turned them into felt a lot like what Schembechler but specifically what Gary Moeller and Lloyd Carr had. Like, I can still see Anthony Thomas on a screen pass up the sideline for 35 yards. I can still see that. Like, he didn't beat those Michigan teams.
No.
You know,
It took
a Rich Rod
took
Michigan
Harbaugh a
team
little
is
bit to
not
find
a
his
Michigan
footing.
team.
Harbaugh's doing good with the Chargers.
Yeah.
That
So
he
that
is.
turned
That
them
he
into
is.
a decent defensive team overnight.
He's a good fucking coach.
He's a good fucking football coach.
I know people here. I know people in Columbus hate his guts.
No,
No.
he's a good football coach.
It doesn't bother me any.
Pat,
I liked it.
you hit on something, and I think I'll wrap this part up with this. If you're going to move off Day, and you want to beat Michigan because that's the most important thing to you, then it's very clear. History has shown you the path to make that happen is it has to be someone who is from the state of Ohio. Because my daughter and I have a saying that what's understood never has to be explained. Tressel got it. Meyer got it. If you got Vrabel or Freeman, they get it. You don't have to explain it to them. But Cooper was from, he came from Arizona.
Tennessee. He was a Tennessean.
They grew up in New Hampshire.
I think. Yeah.
I saw a stat to your point. We can move on to the next thing, 'cause I know there are going to be some hot opinions on this next topic. But I saw something on Twitter, so take it with a grain of salt. But coaches who were born in Ohio versus Michigan are something like 39 and 12. Like, it's just like,
You see what I'm saying? They're lunatics.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like. So
I'm glad.
It's not. To quote the great Colin Cowherd, it's not everything, but it's something, right? Like, you can make it however you want, but the majority of the wins that Ohio State has against Michigan are with head coaches who were born in Ohio. So take
me
of
just-
that what you will.
Real
Make of
quick.
that what you will.
I've had people tell me old people, they were like, well, Bo Schembechler was a traitor and that he learned everything from Woody Hayes and he stole it all and went up there and started winning. That's how lunatics are. That's how lives in this state.
The interesting is he's assistant coach at Ohio State. He gets his first head coaching job where? Cradle of Coaches, Oxford, Ohio, Miami of Ohio.
Miami, yeah, that's right.
And then goes to Michigan.
Yeah.
And Miami is very proud of the fact that they had coaches that left there that went on to go to do big things. One last thing I'll just mention about Ohio State, then we're going to move on to the last thing I really want to talk about. Our good friend Ron, his real good friend that he grew up with, Demetrius Stanley, who passed away, God bless his soul.
R.I.P.
I remember distinctly being at one of the fight parties. Pat, I want to say it was at the condo you had before you got married.
It probably was, yeah. He was a lot of those, yeah.
And I remember Raymond Harris was there with us. I remember we talked about, I want to say it was like a Pacquiao fight. There were
I think it was Pacquiao.
It was it was an Ohio State game that was at night, and then I think we stayed around to watch the fight. I think is what it was.
Yes, that's what it was. Yep.
And I made two comments. I said, I don't understand why as corners we don't play man-to-man. We're Ohio State, we should play man-to-man. And they both said, because we don't have corners that can play man-to-man. That was an eye-opener for me, because they see the game through a different lens because they played it so they know. I was like, wow, so we're not recruiting at a level where we can lock guys up man-to-man. We're Ohio State. That was an eye-opener. And then I remember asking Demetrius specifically, what was the deal for the Michigan game? You guys were clearly more talented. Like, what happened? And I remember him distinctly saying how when they had practice during the year, practices were open, your parents could come, they'd be in a scouts and all this other stuff. And then the week of the Michigan game, they would lock everybody out. And they're practicing plays that they hadn't practiced all year. And they were just doing a lot of weird things because I think Cooper was wound so tight because he felt the pressure that it led to the result that you got. So when you call him Ryan Cooper, it feels a lot like he's... Now, the one thing I will give him credit for, and this is why I'm a Day guy and not a Cooper guy, Ryan Day coaches with a level of urgency that John Cooper never did.
Oh,
Agreed.
okay.
Agreed.
And I want to clean this up real quick.
Rode the roller coaster, but Day actually has urgency. He's just not pushing the right buttons. That's my sense.
Yes, because Alan made me feel really bad about seeing him and his daughter shopping. I don't dislike Ryan Day. I don't want anything bad to happen to the man. Seems like a very cool dude.
Like Ryan Day,
my dad met him once, said he was a very cool dude. I just threw that out there kind of as a joke. I'm like, jokes in that big game. And again, whoever said it at the beginning, it's like the players have to win. I think somebody said that, or maybe that was earlier. The players have to win the game. They have to execute. They have to do things, and you have to get fortunate and all that. Right. Go ahead. Sorry, go up. Somebody else.
Sorry, I know you were trying to wrap up.
No, go ahead.
Something occurred to me with what you were just saying. So my first year as the student assistant at Otterbein, we're getting ready to play Muskingum. He was coached by Dick Burson.
Okay.
And obviously Dick Reynolds is coaching at
Otterbein.
Is that Jay Burson's dad?
I was going to say, is it relation to Jay
dad.
Burson's
You've got 1,000 wins between those two guys, right?
They've forgotten more basketball than most people know.
Yeah. We go into the coaches meeting on Tuesday. We're playing them on Saturday. And Reynolds sits back in his chair and goes, so what are we going to throw in this year? Because obviously these two guys have been coaching against each other for decades. He goes, what are we going to throw in this year? And his top assistant, a little short guy named Chris Carlisle, stands up and goes on a tirade. I'm so fucking tired of thinking we've got to change who we are just to play against this MFer. We just go out, we do what we do, and we kick his ass. And we didn't put in any wrinkles, beat him by 15 on the road, whatever. And I've always thought of that anytime I watch a rivalry game, especially Ohio State, Michigan, because I think
simple.
I think Cooper felt like, these conference teams, everybody, it's the end of the season. Everybody knows each other so well. So I need wrinkles. I got to run an option with Greg Fry, but when really just line up and do what you do best.
An option with Greg Fry is laughable on so many levels.
God damn it. You just said Greg Fry. Now
So
Thank you, Alan, for that. Thank you.
I want to end on this. It's really one subject I want to end on, but I'll use one subject to get to the other. Just briefly, from an NBA perspective, Nikola Jokic is one of the 3 best players in the world out of Serbia. Put his team on his back.
Just out of Serbia, not the holy. Okay.
Took them to the semifinal of the Olympics. Almost beat Team USA until Curry got hot at the end in the whole 9, and they got a bronze medal. He scored 56 points the other day against the worst team in the league, the Washington Wizards, and they lost. And his comment about, well, I'm from a place where they would dock your pay, or it's not to say that they might not beat you up. That obviously can't happen here in America, but I just felt that was massively refreshing to hear that someone's pay should be docked if you play like shit. Like, that just felt...
You can't say that, Dennis. This isn't the 1960s. We don't beat our players.
It just warmed my heart to say, you can't keep asking me to drop 56 on motherfuckers and y'all not do shit. Like, if I drop 56 points and we don't win this game, it's kind of like, to me, Tracy McGrady never getting out of the first round of the NBA play. He's too talented of a player to never get out of the first round. It feels like that to me.
Real quick for the audience, because I don't know this game. I know you mentioned this in the text, but was Michael Porter Jr. there? Was Jamal Murray there?
Yes.
Who was there?
They played.
They were all there, and they still lost when he dropped 56.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right, that is a problem.
Right. So I just
And for the listeners that don't know, those are the other 2 all-star level players that play around Jokic.
Those are guys that are making. Those are guys with $100 million contracts. I don't think it's unfair.
Yeah, they should have won that.
To say, I'm paying you $100 million
this year, so
didn't lose to the worst team in the league. So the last thing I want to hit on is this. Last week, there was so much talk about LeBron, the way he's playing. He's not hitting threes. He looks old. He looks tired. Is this the end for LeBron? Al, I'll start with you. Is this really the end for LeBron?
Go, Alan. Go. Tell us all. Tell us all about LeBron.
This is a clear out for Alan.
1-4 down. 1-4 down. Al, go.
I think the short answer is I'll never believe it is, because he is the most legacy-obsessed athlete we've ever seen. So I'm never going to be certain that he's ready to move on. But that said, the Bronny stuff went sideways a little bit, and
we predicted that.
He's 40. And
what do you mean by sideways? What do you mean it went sideways?
On the mileage. So, yeah, I mean, we've already seen that the Lakers need to go through AD to be decent, and even sometimes they still aren't decent. And he's not the greatest player GM anymore. You could argue maybe he kind of never was, aside from the Riley magic. So, and I don't think, because of the way that he needs to have the ball in his hands, I don't think you have the guys lining up to play with him that maybe you would have had 5-10 years. So, yeah, so long answer, I'll never believe that he's almost done, because I know how much it all means to him.
But he is almost 40, right? Didn't we say that? He's almost 40.
I think he turns 40 this month.
Yeah, but there are signs there that it's probably.
Tubbs, what do you think? You think he's done? And hold on, before you answer the question, what I mean done, I don't mean he's washed as a player. I think LeBron is still one of the 15, 30 best basketball players in the world. But he's not one of the top 5 or 10 league. So, because he clearly slipped, is he done?
I think, if you're relying on him as your best player, then yeah, I think that's his past. But do I think he's serviceable? Do I think he comes in particular moments? I think he could be good. I would never put him in the same class of being like, okay, he's Udonis Haslem. He's just a dude on the roster. He's going to.
No, he would never do that.
He's there for the quote unquote culture. Like, he's never. I think he has more dignity. He has more pride that he would not do that. But I think the days of him being your best player on the team, I would argue that I would probably argue that more so than anything. And to your point, Alan, about the Bronny thing, this is not shade or anything like that. I just feel like he rushed it. I mean, like, because I think he knows at the end he has more days behind him than he has in front of him. So I think he probably viewed it as if this is going to happen, it's got to happen now. Whereas, and this is again no shade to Bronny, maybe he just wasn't ready for it.
Do you think it was LeBron's dream or Bronny's dream to play together?
I think it's LeBron's dream. I
Yeah.
don't think it was Bron.
Me too. I think Bronny rather still be at USC. Like,
I think if
working on the
Bronny got drafted in the second round by Charlotte, he was playing in Charlotte, then Bronny would just be playing in Charlotte. So I think Bronny wants to play. I think Bronny wants to hoop, but I think it's his dad's dream for him to be side by side. And
Yep.
certainly I think put the basketball aside. I mean, certainly some of us have kids here, so like if we were in a line of business where we could then work side by side by our child, like, yes, we would want that, right? So I'm not bagging on him for that, but
maybe one of my kids, not both of them. Sorry.
Well, it's a different discussion. Depending on the day, I could pick one of the three.
Right.
But I also think that like if you compare and contrast that with like Melo, right? Melo said from the jump, we're not rushing it, we're not skipping steps, we're not going to do whatever. We're gonna be in the process, right? And so Melo's kid is now going to Syracuse, right? So maybe he stays a year, maybe he goes 2 years. I have no idea. But Melo's biggest thing was like, I'm not going to short the process. We're going to let the process play out. We're going to let it evolve, and we're going to see where we shake out at the end. So, but I think for LeBron, I think that factors into the equation of, I don't want to say his relevancy because I think he's always going to be relevant. But the Bronny thing, and yeah, bring on everybody because I can shoulder it. But, Father Time is undefeated. So over time, I just think that he's still a good dude. I think that's to your point, top 15, top 20. But, the days of him putting a team on his back like he did against Detroit in the Eastern Conference Finals, like, those are long gone. Like, he's just, even Miami, and even Miami LeBron is long gone.
Yeah.
The year they got to when they played the Spurs, was that 07?
That was 5-point fourth quarter.
6. Yeah.
That's like
06 or 06.
That's like the 4-point special. Like, that was the end.
That was amazing.
That
was amazing.
There.
Yeah.
Well, and to quote some people that'll go nameless, LeBron started his career before HD, right? Well, now we have moved past HD, so we have evolved.
And his hairline. What's his hairline?
I can't say anything about that because
I'm
bald as shit, so it doesn't.
I can't say anything about that.
Do you think he's done? I don't mean washed as a player. I don't think LeBron would ever be washed as a player. But do you think he's done?
Yeah, I do. I think this is it. I mean, what else is left? I mean, he's not going anywhere else. Alan pointed it out. He's not attracting anyone. No one's going, let's get on the LeBron train. I think he's got what he wants. He's the NBA's all-time leading scorer. He's going to be in the top 5 in many meaningful statistical categories when he hangs them up. He's got what does he got? Is it 4 or 5 chips? Can't remember.
He's got 4.
It's 4. Okay, that's a respectable number. He has a longevity part of his career that maybe no one will ever do that. No one will ever start at 18 and play till they're 40.
That's
maybe
why
there will be.
Can touch the record. You would have to come into the league at 18 and average
and be
20 for the next 20.
And be meaningful at 18. That's important. Coming in, playing over 40 minutes a night and being good.
Well, I think one of you said it. It's legacy, right? I think for him, I think he plays for 2 reasons. He plays for the opportunity to potentially play with his son, and I think he plays for legacy. He's pushing the number out because at this point, look at how long it took for somebody
to catch Kareem.
To catch Kareem. And then who was the leading scorer before Kareem? I can't remember who it was, but whoever it was, I imagine it was a long time before Kareem could catch them, right? So all he's doing is just pushing the number.
I don't know that. I wish I did.
I don't know. I don't know that.
He's just pushing the number out, right? So
Alan, come on now. This is where you shine.
I know.
Kareem break the number and then ascend from there. Who was it? Was it George Mikan? No. Was it? Probably not. We'll get to that on the next.
Yeah.
We'll figure out who that was.
Yeah. My sense of it is this is probably his last year because now the slippage is noticeable. And he could retire and still be one of the 20 or 30 best players in the league. Much like Jordan at 39 was still averaging 20 points a night for the Wizards. But we all knew it wasn't the same because we had seen the apex.
That was pickup league Jordan.
Yeah, like I think it's done. Or let me say it this way. It would be my preference that at the end of this year, he retires and he doesn't come back for another year the way Kareem did and everybody was giving him gifts across the league. Like, no.
But you know what, though? I think that he would, though. But here's the thing. I think he would do it. Listen, at that level, I imagine everybody has an ego, right? You want your flowers.
You don't reach
right?
those levels without one.
Yeah, you don't reach it, but I think it would be under the ruse of this is for the fans.
We've all been sweet.
And that's where I think he's like Democrats and can't read the room. Because
that is a different pod too.
I don't think fans really want to see some sort of cross-country field tour for him. In large part because, Alan, you said something that I had never really considered, but I can't think of another player who would actually do it, which is you are an active player who is actively thinking about their legacy. So,
you know what? Jordan did it too. Jordan got the farewell tour too, and Jordan arguably is the greatest of all time.
But it was
Jordan was only third
because
on the scoring list.
Right, but it was different because Jordan left the Bulls and then came back with the Wizards, so we all kind of tacitly knew that this is the end, right? I'll give you a great player right now at the end of his career who is not thinking about legacy, and they should. And that's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has destroyed his legacy with these 2 seasons for the Jets.
Mm-hmm. Well, 1 season. He got 3 snaps. What was it?
They
4
would
snaps?
be better off today with Zach Wilson as their quarterback. And nobody believed that a year ago. They won 7 games with Zach Wilson, and now they've got 3.
Look, the Jets are cursed. I want to make one more comment about LeBron before you wrap up this thing.
Mm.
What if? Now, and you know I'm going to take it here because this is what I do. What if he has to retire because of the Diddy stuff, guys? Let's think about that. He's been to the Diddy parties. We've seen the clips.
They came for Jay-Z, and he's
They're
close
coming
to
for Jay-Z. They're coming for him now. Who knows what's going on with all that? I'm not next to it. I've not read a single thing because I think it's all
Pat, I will
horrible.
just tell you what I've heard the streets say. And what I've heard the streets say is LeBron was notorious for making you sign an NDA. LeBron? Early LeBron.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember I went to the Miami Hurricanes Clemson football game. This would have been 2015. One of my homeboys lived down there, so me and my other homeboys went down to the game. And we were tailgating with the people. The game was so bad, we left half through the third quarter because they were flying banners over the stadium like "Fire Al Golden," and they fired him the next day. Clemson won 66-0. They beat Miami so bad. The Clemson fans came out of the stadium and weren't even talking shit because the backup quarterback got in. We got so drunk because the game was at noon that we couldn't find the car when we left the parking lot. So we just hit people's tailgates randomly. Like, hey, what's up? And
maybe you'll find the car.
Right. And so we're like striking up conversations with people. And at this point, LeBron had already announced like he was going back to Cleveland, right? What they were saying, what they were telling us there in Miami at the game in the tailgates was there was a woman in Miami who was not his wife, who he was obsessed with. And his basically said, I'm done with this. I'm going home. I'm taking the kids and I'm going back home. And that man said, I'm getting my shit together. And if you're going home, then damn it, I'm coming home too. And that's why he went back.
That's why he went back. It certainly wasn't the Dan's.
Side note,
what's his name, Dan?
I just looked it up. Kareem overtook the scoring record from
Oscar
Wilt
Robertson.
From Wilt.
Damn it. All right. My guess would have been Oscar.
From Wilt to Kareem to LeBron. So, like, this record might not be beaten in our lifetime.
And by the way,
that's in our lifetimes.
I
And
want
that's
somebody
thousands
to.
and thousands of ladies that
I
have been
would
bedded
love
down by this
somebody
man.
to write like Jeff Pearlman, Brian, because you read his books. I would love for Jeff Pearlman to do a book on the rivalry between Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem.
I mean, his book on Showtime is amazing.
Because it runs deep, because he was mentoring Kareem when Kareem was Lou Alcindor.
Mhm.
Then it switched.
And
And then
for the
all
record, he beat the record on April 5th, 1984. So you went from 84 all the way up to what, 2023 is when he broke it?
Wow.
So you're looking at almost 40 years.
40
Well,
years, the
40
record
years.
stood?
It's pretty remarkable. And just for our young listeners, if you really want to look at something fun involving Kareem,
Our young listeners.
just go to YouTube and Google Kareem Abdul-Jabbar 3-pointers. I think he took like 4 of them, and they got them all. It's on YouTube. It's sensational.
Listen.
And it's a real broadcast at the moment, and the broadcaster's like, at one point the guy's like, "What's Kareem doing?" He's like shooting a 3, and it was like, "What is he doing?"
Well, in the spirit of
He
YouTube,
would have never done that.
if you want to see some shit, just Google Chuck Cecil.
Yeah,
That-
God, that came
that-
up today.
That,
We
that
gotta do
is
a
it. Yeah, I
segment
was gonna
on
say,
that.
yeah,
the next
yeah.
time we get together, let's talk about how people used to get murdered in the NFL
Yeah.
when we were kids.
All right.
And
I've been
One
trying to
last
explain
thing.
it to my family about how
One
safety for committing homicides every other Sunday.
they were
on
murdering
every
people.
play. On every play. One last thing, and then we are going to end on this. Alan, you're getting ready to pay a guy $750 million to play baseball for a year.
Yes.
For
There it is. There's the
15
Mets
years.
guy.
Listen. Like I told you guys yesterday, the first billion-dollar baseball player is now in play. But let me say this. In Soto's defense, I saw something, I think it was on SportsCenter. The number of there's only 3 players in the history of baseball that have hit for 25 home runs and then been walked like a significant, I can't remember the number, like 100 times in a year, right? The only 3 players that have ever done this are Barry Bonds, Babe Ruth, and Ted Williams, and now Soto is the 4th, and he's 25 years old. I'm not saying he's not worth the money. I'm saying $765 million to play baseball is honestly unconscionable. But Al, don't forgive me for this. If the difference between playing for the Yankees and the Mets is $5 million, it tells me the union forced him to go to the Mets. Because there's no reason to go to the Mets if the difference is $5 million. The union had to say, you will take the Mets contract, and that's it. And I'd have told the union, pound sand. You don't
Did you see how they fielded the ball in that last game?
Right.
They
Yeah.
weren't very good. The Mets are good defensively. The Mets are a good team. Go ahead, Alan. Sorry.
Well, I will say, and admittedly, I was not able to dig into the details. Some things have surfaced today that apparently there are some details in the contract that are pretty significant differences, and it's kind of got these fans up in arms, like, oh wow, it's like the Yankees did the dollar in years thing to make it look good, but when you dig into the details, it wasn't close.
Okay. That
Okay.
But I have not dug in to understand that.
okay.
What I will say, he's got 2 of the 5 longest home runs ever hit at Citi Field. I hope we get the version that was hitting a few more line drive, because, obviously you go to Yankee Stadium, you're going to add that big uppercut to your swing. And I mean, a lot of guys do that now in Lodge Angle and all that happy horse shit. But, he also won a batting title, hit like 321 or something like that when he was with the Nationals.
The Nationals, yeah. He was really good there.
What's really crazy about Soto is he actually plays a position in the field, which I know that's not that important for MVP votes anymore, but
It's
he plays a
Otani
position.
bashing alert. Otani bashing alert.
I was thinking it. I was totally thinking it.
But I
Well,
mean,
yeah. We have a whole
he's
list
got
of
knocked
things.
out after year 5, which
we
I
got a whole list
figure
of things we got to add to it, like a whole nother pod. Like we keep saying, like that's a whole nother pod. We just have a whole list of things. It's just a whole.
We
nother
really
pod.
do.
we really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him. If he has a good enough 5 years that he feels like he can reset his market and opt out after year 5, then we've had a glorious fucking 5 years. So
let me ask Alan this real quick. Are you more excited about this signing of Soto or Carlos Beltran?
Soto.
Soto? This is more important to you because at the time, was a pretty big deal.
Yeah. It was a big deal.
This guy's bigger. You're saying he's bigger. Is he a switch hitter or no?
No, he's a lefty, but
yeah, just yeah.
He is different. He has a Barry Bonds level understanding of the strike zone.
Ooh, that's a big plus for Aldog that he likes this kid.
That
that's a big plus for Aldog.
That will get me pitcher who's pretty active on Twitter, X, whatever the fuck.
It's X.
Has
our Lord and Savior Elon has deemed it so.
But Stroman has detailed in the past like why Soto's approach at the plate is so superior to every other hitter in baseball. And
I'll say this, because he's on a Bonds level trajectory, that gets me to a TV set, because you guys know Bonds is, I will die on this hill, Bonds the best baseball player.
Greatest baseball player I ever saw with my eyeballs.
Steroids or not, Bonds is the best baseball player that I ever saw.
And Ohtani's good. Because we got hit on this on your last time we did a pod. People were like, "You guys don't know what you're talking about." Ohtani's a good player. He's not as good as Bonds. Sorry,
for my money, Bonds is still the best player I ever saw. But I will go to a TD if Soto's a bat. So really, we're going to end on this because we're going to come full circle. Does Ohio State beat Tennessee and play Oregon in the Rose Bowl? Yes or no? Brian, for you, let me level set. If you were betting, I'm just asking you, forget the points. You're just going to take the money line. Is Ohio State going to win the game against Tennessee at home? Yes or no? Al, you first.
Yes.
Pat?
I'm wearing an Ohio State hat. And also, I'm the only one that was festive today. This says Nakatomi Plaza Christmas Party. This is holiday appropriate. Yes, they will win.
It's a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie, motherfucker. It is a Christmas movie in the same way that Players Ball by Outkast is a Christmas
my favorite Christmas song. Players Ball by Outkast is my favorite Christmas song.
Players Ball is a Christmas song?
They were 17 years old when they made 16, 17. They were high school students when they made that. Pat, Players Ball, Outkast, as we digress for a second.
Is this the song or the album?
Right. So no. The song Players Ball was
First album was Southern Playalistic.
Right. But that song Players Ball was on the LaFace, because remember, L.A. Reid and Babyface started
L.A.
a label.
Reid, yeah,
right?
I remember that.
The label, all the artists on the label had to submit a song for the Christmas album.
That was theirs?
Their submission was Players Ball, right? All the players came from far and wide wearing afros and braids.
Wearing them, driving gangster rides.
Right.
That's
a Christmas song that they submitted for the album. L.A. Reid came back to Organized Noise and Rico Wade, who were the producers, and said, I need an entire album that sounds like that. And that's where Outkast came from, because they were recording in Rico Wade's mom's basement, which was dirt red clay floor, and they called it the Dungeon.
The Dungeon Family, motherfucker. Let's get it right. We can do a whole podcast on just that.
They were high school kids. Outkast
and your mom.
That first album fundamentally changed my life because nothing sounded like
that. That was 1993.
Like Outkast. I'll die on the hill.
Yeah, nothing.
Wait, so Ohio State win the game. You take the money? Yes or no?
I would tell you straight up. I mean, you guys do the betting stuff. That's not my bag. But if you're asking, do they win? I would say yes. I think they won.
They're gonna win. God damn it, they have to.
So now
Ryan will do it.
God bless him. Well, I will say for the record, I think they win, but I think the game was close.
It's gonna be close.
I think a lot of people are going to be clutching their pearls, holding on to it. But what I will say is this. I think the night before and all day is going to be arguably the greatest day college football ever had, that we finally got on-campus playoff games. And I cannot wait, because I think it's going to be something, quite frankly, you've never seen before, and that is going to lead us to get to 16 teams. That is just that's my fundamental belief, that once you see it, because no one's seen it yet, because they already said, it's at least $100 to get in the stadium right now. And Tennessee's only allotted 3,500 seats.
Oh, that's good. That's good though. We don't need
Yeah,
them
but
Rocky
then- but
Top
that-
people
but-
up here.
Honestly, that in-game, we kind of talked about this before, but like the inside the stadium sometimes is not great. It's kind of
Well, hold on. And
for
to
Ohio
me,
State.
to
Oh,
me,
it's very block. Very block.
part of the Michigan loss you can blame on the fans because the fans didn't bring it. Because if it was a big game, this is where the SEC does have an advantage. If it's a big game and you're hosting so and so, such and such, they go all out. And it, because of course, it just means more. So
Keep in mind that too.
I don't know, man. I mean, I wanted to say something kind like, well, we're educated up here, so we just assumed that we were going to win. But that's not true
Don't do
either.
that. Don't do that.
We're not
don't
going to do
do
that
that.
either.
Don't do
No.
that.
Not true.
Don't do that.
That's not true.
Again,
Not
54% of this country reads at a 6th grade reading level.
You and your stats, they're terrible and wonderful.
Listen, if I could explain America, I would explain it in that stat. That's how I would explain it. So on that note, thank you guys for jumping on. This has been great. We will get back together soon, probably after some of these results play out, because there'll be a lot to discuss.
right before the new year, we'll do it. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe
No.
after the new year.
No.
Good point. It's a good point. It's why it's your show. It's not our show.
You know what? We'll work on the lineup here in a week.
The
How
rundown.
about that? The
What I'm
rundown.
hearing you say is we need a producer and we need to put this on a separate feed. That's what I'm hearing you say, and quite frankly, I support that.
and preferably at a place that serves alcoholic drinks.
I'm still trying to figure out how Alan didn't realize Kareem passed Will Chamberlain. Like, this guy fucking knows everything. Like, he knows every obscure thing.
I've
Hold on,
never
let's
been
just-
more fucking
Quick,
ashamed
hold
in
where
my
did
life.
Perry Elliott play college basketball?
Don't beat him up for that.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Where did Perry Elliott play college
You mean
basketball?
Elliott Perry, Memphis State?
Elliott Perry, yes.
Memphis.
Memphis State. He was left-handed.
There it is. See what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, people? All right,
Fair
wrap it
enough.
up, folks.
All right. So on that note, Elliott Perry, blast from the past, Memphis, and it'll always be Memphis State to me. They'll never be Memphis. So on that note, old Metro Conference reference. So on that note, bring it back. Thank you guys for jumping on. This has been great. We'll do this probably again after the first of the year once things kind of wrap up, because at that point we're heading into NFL playoff time, and there's real thought that Steelers are Super Bowl contenders. So Brian, I will cede the floor to you on all things Steelers.
We're not excited about the Steelers, but happy holidays to everyone. Enjoy your
Absolutely.
holidays.
Same.
Hey, Merry
Same.
Christmas, Happy Holidays, New Year's, all that
Do
good
all
stuff.
that shit.
So with that, we'll holler at you guys later. Appreciate it.